We're online. Welcome to the meeting. We'll go through the agenda item by item. Any apologies?
None received, Chair.
Yeah. Minutes of the last meeting. Are they agreed as a true record? Okay, thank you. This is going to be quick. Well, not that quick, unfortunately. Item number 4. Report to the Joint Consultative Committee on information, minor changes to the establishment agreed outside the full JCSC process. And I'm reading it out for the benefit of people who may be watching. Thank you. So I'll pass it over to David now.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and talk as quickly as I can, get it over with. So, it's a standing item, this one. Just two things to report in terms of staffing changes outside the full consultation and JCSE process. First one is in the workforce team, the old HR team, if you like. Some minor changes there. We have combined the old posts of performance manager and the customer insights officer post into a single job to try and I suppose maximise the synergies that are there. Also, it does save some resources, some money. So the deletion equates to 44.5 hours, and then creating that new post of a full-time performance and customer insight officer at 37 hours. Other changes bringing up the assistant director for workforce back to a full-time post, and a nuance really of splitting the assistant organisational development officer, which is a technical and support role, into two half-time contracts, sister contracts if you like. That'll enable us to be more nimble if we need to move parts of the service in and out to other teams as well in the future. Second change is in environment at 4.2. So if you think about sort of depot and the management of the depot, some frontline changes there in terms of 3 posts within PASC, supervisory posts, skilled team worker, and the ops manager post we lost. All of those were vacant, and we created a new post of parks and street cleansing manager. That post was used for redeployment following the senior management review early in the year. So it was I suppose timely in that it provided us a way of making sure that there were no compulsory redundancies. That's probably all I'd say on those, Chair.
Any questions from the floor? I'll just ask one general question. That's an item later on stress. Will these positions, new positions, actually be monitored in the future to make sure that stress levels, etc., etc.?
Not specifically, Chair, I don't think, no. But what I would say is, and I've said it a few times here, I guess, the measures that we have taken and continue to take within the organisation to support people at work and sometimes to return to work, I'm really proud of. In a later report, we do kind of allude to it, you're right. The provision later in the year, hopefully to take on mental health first aiders in the workforce as well. So again, a signposting role to help support people who are perhaps having more difficult times and need some more support. So lots of things we do already, but other plans for the future as well. So you're right to make the point that putting 44.5 hours into 37 potentially does create that sort of pressure. What I would say is it's about prioritisation. None of us could and should work in ways that are damaging to us. And so it will be a case of 37 hours worth of work and no more than that. We would need to perhaps look at some of the things that we do and do them differently and cut out some of the things as well. So conscious of those ideas, and you're right to raise the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer to that. So with that explanation, and is it agreed? All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 5, and again I'll read it out for the benefit of anybody who may be watching. It's get it right. Item 5 is purpose of the report is this is information to highlight to the committee on issues of particular interest, replace the council in relation to the council workforce. But I've got my wrong tongue in.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's me again because it's only me here, so it'll be me all night. Sorry. So this one is just really, I suppose, just one item I've put in there to do with pay and the National Pay Award. You'll be probably fatigued with it by now because I mentioned this a couple of times. There's been, I suppose, some progress. The start of the report really just recaps what you've heard before, which is about the pay claim. I suppose in terms of sort of new information, you'll see on page 10 that the employers have made what they would say is a full and final offer to increase most pay by £1,290 a year, or 2.5% at the higher levels within the national pay spine. There's some background there as well, I suppose, to give you some context. If we look at perhaps the pay awards that have happened over the last 3 years, then from April 21 to current rates of pay, the people in the bottom rate of pay will have had a pay increase of 29%, and in the middle of the pay bands, nearly 19%, and nearly 11% at the top. So it gives you an idea over the last 3 years about how pay awards have affected pay nationally and locally. The cost of the pay award as it's proposed, well, nationally is about 4.03%, for us 4.05% on the pay bill. So there is an effect. Where we're at in terms of that national negotiation, GMB now have balloted members who would say that they are prepared to accept the National Pay Award. That said, Unite, who we don't recognise locally, but for the purposes of national pay bargaining we do, so Unite and Unison, both are now going out to ballot for industrial action. For Unison, the ballot runs until the 16th of October and to the 15th for Unite. So I think we're in a similar position to last year, which is we will not get to a position, I think, until at least November time, possibly slightly later. And it depends on the outcome of the ballot. Potentially there is industrial action, possibly strike action. It may be that there's an agreed settlement, but we won't know that until much later in the year. And obviously way past the 1st of April, which is the application date normally. Whatever pay awards are agreed, it will be backdated until then, of course. So that's where we are nationally. Happy to answer any questions as best as I can, but that's the item I thought that might be of most interest to you.
I remember it is the national negotiations, but any questions? Catherine?
In terms of the different unions, is it the position that if one union agrees to accept their members get the pay rise regardless of what other unions do, and assume that the old trade union rules still apply in terms of the threshold being at a local level of members having to vote to reject the pay offer and take industrial action if that's the case?
So I'll need to come back to you on the detail of the proportionality for the votes being, I suppose, credible. And I don't know whether I think that the ballots, I think, and I need to come back to you on this point, are being held at national level rather than local level. So last year, some of the unions talked about disaggregated voting. So it's just what you said, that actually at local level, for GMB, I think that they ran disaggregated ballots. The outcome of that could have been that in some areas there might have been authority for strike action, legitimate strike action. I think that these are national ballots, and I will come back to you on it. If that's the case, then you'd expect to see the whole of the ballot being counted. The risk of that from a union perspective is that that's quite a hard thing to achieve, but there is strength in number if it is achieved. So the question about if one agrees, no, the national pay bargaining with the three unions, you'd need a majority. So last year Unite hadn't agreed, but GMB and Unison did, and the pay award was taken through. So it would need two of the unions to at least to show a majority. That's the position.
Any further questions on that? Well, it's a report, and as I say, we'll see what happens. Any preparations we make won't be till after the national ballot anyway, to see how it goes. But I'm sure our officers will be prepared for whatever, either accepting it or not. But yeah, we'll keep you informed on what's happening as far as we can with the national ballots. So with that, item 5 agreed. It's a matter for information more than anything else. Agreed? Those please show. Thank you. Unanimous. Item 6. Sickness absence summary of current trends. And again, I said earlier, I'll pass over to David.
Thank you, Chair. I'll probably sort of canter quite quickly through the first part of the report because that will be familiar territory for you. It really is just a chance to report that sickness as a trend continues to decrease, which is good news. In December, we were at just over 10 days per FTE per year. Now down to, in the report, 9.88 at the end of March. I can tell you, not reported here, but we're down to sort of closer to 9.2 now, so we are very much heading towards target. And again, we continue to be active in our monitoring of sickness absence and the management as well. You'll see, again, the number of longer-term cases are relatively few. We've been up in double figures of cases in the past. We're down to 6 at the moment. Doesn't sound like a lot, but each case of absence means that someone is away from work for at least 20 working days in the month. And it does have quite a material effect on the stats. But no, we're down to 6 cases at the moment. And again, this active management, we hope, is something to help support employees to stay at work and get back to work in safe ways. I was probably going to dwell a little bit more on page 12. We start to introduce the idea of an annual report. So this is something you'll see less frequently here. Appendix 2 on page 19 sets out reasons for absence over the year and the proportion of the days lost because of those absences. For me, I think some encouraging changes. So if you look at the stats for the last financial year, so ending in March, the main reason for absence was colds and flu. In the past and for quite some years, the main reasons for absence has been depression and stress and anxiety. So not necessarily work-related, but mental health issues have been the predominant reason for absence. This year, still in the list of the top 3, but not the top. And the difference between last year and this year is a reduction by about 30 days. So it's hard to say that that's a trend, but what I can say is it's a good result for 1 year. My hope for the reasons we just talked about in terms of continuing to provide support for people and to promote that support within the workplace, and the measures to put into the workplace the mental health first aiders later in the year. My hope is that we can continue with that positive trend. I don't have figures, but I can tell you that other local authorities, sister authorities within the county would report similar, I suppose, reasons for absence with stress and depression, anxiety not being uncommon in the workplace. I suppose what I'd say as well, just to round it off, Chair, would be probably looking at the sort of the figures between last year and this year, very similar in terms of number overall. But actually the reasons for absence due to self-certification, so shorter term absences, reduced by about 20%. So some of these numbers are down to longer term cases. And if you remember, yes, back in December, they were running quite high. But yeah, as I say, we're trying to actually sort of bring those down now with active management as well. So in some ways, yes, absence, it is, I suppose, a material thing within the workplace, as here as with anywhere else, and there is a cost to that, a human cost and a financial cost. But in terms of perhaps the reasons for absence, that reduction in absence due to depression and anxiety and stress coming down, it, for me, is a positive.
Thanks, David. Any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, sort of coming back to the mental health first aiders, and I'm really pleased to see that the levels of absence due to stress, anxiety, mental illness is coming down, because I mean, mental illness generally is rapidly becoming a significant problem for many employers. With regard to the mental health first aiders, am I right in assuming that support is available to all employees regardless of location?
Thank you. The answer is yes. I mean, so we are still working to sort of get the bones of that into place, and there have been one or two sort of changes around the organisation that have sort of put this back a little bit in the work programme, but we will still anticipate delivering that this year. And the answer is yes. I mean, the idea for signposting, which is the role of a mental health first aider predominantly, absolutely, and it's absolutely relevant when you look at the absence stats in our environmental services, so the park service, the waste services, and then into leisure services where rates of absence are quite high as well. Absolutely, and those areas which are perhaps underserved by traditional means, the role of that mental health first aider in those areas will be, I was going to say equal to, but I mean it absolutely is paramount. We need to sort of provide that support to all employees, whether they're full-time or part-time, whether they have access or not to IT kit, because that's we sometimes rely on that perhaps heavily. And I think particularly with this sort of thing, you don't need to do that. You shouldn't do that. The service should be universal in that sense. So yes.
Good, thank you. How many individuals do we envisage to be trained as mental health first aiders?
Okay, to be determined, I think, is the answer. It needs to be a number that I suppose gives good support within within those work teams. I guess it depends a little bit on the nature of the business as well, because it's no good having one person working 9 to 5 in leisure services in the front line in the leisure centres if half the workforce actually work from 6 till 11 at night. So I think those sort of things will affect it as well, but I can't give you a number at the moment. Okay.
But it is something that will be kept an eye on. For any further questions? No? All those in agreement with the report? Accept the report? Unanimous, thank you. Went too far. Report on the gender gap as at the 31st of March 2024. Again, over to Dave.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report that comes to committee once a year. Again, it's a report which is for information. So any organisation of 250 employees or more is required by the government to report its gender pay gap. And so the definition of that on page 21 is the difference between the average earnings of men and women expressed relative to men's earnings. So this is something now that's been in place for 7 years. You'll see in the government's manifesto their desire to introduce more analysis to do with ethnicity as well. That's and disability. So other things are coming in the future. Those requirements to extend this sort of scrutiny. But the idea of gender pay and the differences in gender pay have been, I suppose, sort of well analysed for this since 2017. So the report that went to senior leadership team starts on page 22. In terms of where this information is reported, well, other than coming to yourselves, it's reported within the annual pay policy, which goes out around about November and is reported to Council in January each year, and also onto the government website as well. So the information in terms of the stats, which you start to see on page 23, and the narrative that accompanies those, that's all public information. Probably not too much that I would say. I'm happy to answer questions. The mean gender pay gap, so on page 23, if you look at the table, the top left-hand cell, that's the one that's most often quoted when you hear about gender pay gap information. So the mean gender pay gap at 4.1% for us this year. higher than last year, but actually lower than it has been as well. When you look at information from other similar organisations, we seem to be well within what would be considered to be, I suppose, a reasonable range. Anything other than 0 isn't something to rest your laurels on, is it? But so absolutely, we'd need to sort of continue to report and continue to find ways to make a difference. But it is quite hard to shift the numbers sometimes. But what I would say, it is within those boundaries of sort of what might be considered to be reasonable for an organisation of this type. But bonus is something in the past that we have reported and not this year. Well, the reason is that bonus for us we've considered to be a sort of market premium payment. So sometimes where we found it difficult or impossible to recruit into jobs, we've paid a market supplement. So at the end of last year, there were no posts in receipt of that. So we managed to recruit into posts without the need to pay those bonuses, which you'd hope wouldn't be necessary. You'd hope you're paying at the correct levels in terms of job worth, but also market as well. So that's why there's a 0% there. Generally, I would say that the figures, as you move down along that end column into upper quartiles and middle and lower quartiles, broadly demonstrate a balance. The one that stands out, I guess, is the lower quartile, where predominantly the posts are held by women. I think what we have probably now is the fact that a number of jobs have moved and become more enriched as we've moved along in time. What we're left with towards the bottom end of our pay scales are a lot of part-time jobs, predominantly in leisure services. Societally, as long as it might be, often the part-time work are jobs which are undertaken by women rather than men. And for us, that's what it looks like at the moment in terms of how the gender pay split is, perhaps showing more women proportionately in that lower quartile than men in those lower paid jobs. That was probably all I was going to say, Chair. Happy to try and answer questions. Other than that, the recommendation is just to note the report, please.
Yes, Catherine.
Thank you. Yes, I can see that mostly the difference is negligible, and you're probably talking about 1 or 2 people in each quartile. It troubles me a bit around this rationale around the part-time jobs, because I think there's a cause and effect quandary going on there, that arguably why are all the part-time jobs in the lowest paid category? And I suppose in terms of what you're publishing and reporting, it would be good to see something about the fact that there is the ability to request part-time working across the board, and that people in those part-time jobs are given the opportunity to get better paid jobs and aren't just stuck in the lowest quartile.
Thank you. So yes, I suppose what I might add as well, so that this is not a promise, this is I suppose, a point of view. So as we start to do more with the transformation work, so I think about some of the jobs that we perhaps have in some of the leisure centres, not necessarily the people that work in the gyms, but the people who perhaps work in some of the reception work, those sort of things, in similar ways to other jobs where we have sort of customer support in the council. As we begin to transform services, I would say that those jobs will become more enriched, they will become better trained, and there's a requirement to work and perhaps to have a wider range of tasks. But with that comes money as well, and actually that would be, for me, a direction of travel that, taking your point, a lot of jobs, because we come from a history, don't we, of what sort of jobs are part-time, cleaning jobs quite often, some of the jobs in leisure centres because of the nature of the work being at odd hours and strange hours. There's a real history about how we end up with these sort of situations. My thought is that as we begin to progress and do more and more with the transformation, that actually some of those jobs, and not all, I don't think, but some of those jobs there is opportunity to enrich and do more with and bring up. So that would be my hope and expectation. I'm not sure that answers the question, but it's just I'm trying to add something, I suppose, in terms of a direction for the organisation.
I think I was just trying to make the point that the way it reads, it sounds quite complacent.
Okay.
And when this report is about addressing a gender pay gap, one of the causes of that gender pay gap, as you've just said, is that women tend to end up in part-time work with odd hours. And so therefore, historically, that work, by its very nature of being women's work, was less well paid. And I suppose there's something about tackling that in ensuring that women who want to work part-time can still get better paid jobs.
Sorry, and I may not have explained myself. I think that's what I was saying, that actually, as we go forwards, honestly, there may be fewer jobs, but the jobs that we have will be better jobs and enriched jobs, and with that comes, let's say, better training, but better money as well. So that will be the thing going forward. And if you think about the transformation programme that we have embarked upon, we need to make changes, and we need to make changes quickly. That's the direction of travel. And I think that the point, as you say, it's almost a societal point of view, isn't it? And we've come from a history which is based in gender and gender difference, which we need to get over, absolutely.
I just thought it doesn't read like that in the paper. If adding that in makes quite a bit of difference to how it reads at the moment, is they're lower paid because they're part-time jobs.
Any further questions? So on that one that Catherine's just brought up, pretty simple, so the rate for the job. And hopefully, if Unite wins their appeal, at the moment against Next, that will have to be looked into a lot closer, which should actually on this case as well, equalise, because that was the whole point of actually comparing women's jobs, in their case with warehouse workers and sales staff, etc. So if they win that, the whole everybody's going to have to change and tighten up their policies on that. So personally, looking forward to Unite actually winning the appeals, but it's got 2 more stages to go yet. On that report for information, all agreed? You show, thank you. To move that under section 100A, block 4, the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the ensuing report on the grounds that the report involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 4, part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. So please, all those agree? Oh, no. Sorry, yes, Alex.
Sorry, Chair. I hate to be a stickler, but you missed agenda item number 8. Any other items that you consider urgent? I just want to say something under that item, if that's all right.
My apologies, you're quite right.
That's all right. I just wanted to say something.
It's not written down, I was following.
Obviously, committee will be aware that it's David's last JCSE today, and it would be remiss of me not to say anything, to say that I sat in that chair for 8 years with you by my side, David. And I just want to put on record my thanks for all your help pre-meetings before JCSE to run through agendas with me, and also 32 years representing our residents on this council is absolutely phenomenal. You know, I was only 8 years old when you started working at Gedling.
Just told me I'm as old as his mother. So.
Yeah. You know, the world has changed beyond measure since you started, in employment rights and pay rise and so forth. And you've worked tirelessly, I think, for the staff of Gedling and their ability to deliver great service to our residents. So from me, it's a heartfelt thank you for everything you've done for Gedling Borough Council, and for the residents as well. And good luck in your new job.
And with that, I'll actually second that as well. I've known David a long time. A local bloke, Arnold, his local knowledge, his actual working with the staff. I've known him going even through disputes and what have you. He's actually an asset to Gedling in any way, shape or form you wish to look at it. With both the staff, I think everybody's going to miss him. It's a shame he's going, but all honesty, I hope him very well in the future. And whatever he does, I'll not mention publicly, but whatever he does, I hope he actually successful at it, and I'm sure he will. If he brings the same amount of dedication as he's brought to Gedling, they're very, very lucky to have him. So thank you, David.
Just one last thing. Obviously, it's been a thing where we've had to sit down for years with these chairs and the microphones and that, but can I ask the committee if they're willing to stand and give David a round of applause, please?
That's really kind, and thank you. And yes, 55 meetings, and thank you for enduring the meetings and seeing my face and hearing my voice too much. But thank you for the kind words. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Right, I won't read that out again if that's all right. But if the meeting is now closed can we agree the meeting is now closed to the public, so that the live feed can be turned off. Please show. Unanimous. Thank you.